Hey friends, I want to thank you for tuning in, and I hope these short little devotionals encourage you in your walk with the Lord. I've been reading through some Old Testament stories and going over, there's so much rich truth that we can glean even as we go through the book of Genesis. And in Genesis chapter 15, we see that Abraham is already prospering. He had stepped out by faith, and he heard the voice of God, and he responded in obedience. And in his journey, he was already becoming quite wealthy, but he still didn't have a child. And so in chapter 15, it says, after these things, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. Fear not, Abraham, or Abram, I'm your shield, your reward shall be very great. But Abraham said, O Lord God, what will you give me, for I continue childless? And the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, you have given me no offspring, and a member of my household will be my heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, This man shall not be your heir. Your very own son shall be your heir. And he brought him outside and said, Look towards heaven and the number of the stars, if you are able to number them. Then he said to them, So shall your offspring be. And he believed the Lord, and it counted to him as righteousness. Well, I love it because, it reminds us that when God calls us, he gives us great promises. He just doesn't call us and leave us alone. He calls us and he journeys with us. And you need to read the Old Testament through the lens of Jesus's invitation to relationship, because it's always been about relationship. God called Abram, and he began this journey. He obeyed. And now in chapter number 15, he's quite concerned because even though he's prospering financially, he doesn't have a son. And God gives him this great promise. And he visits him and he says, Fear not. Your reward is great. He goes, I'm your shield. So do you see every day that you've been invited into a relationship with God, and that as he called you, he has many great promises for you? He tells Abram, fear not. But that's our promise, to fear not. And he goes, I'm your shield, your reward. He goes, I'm everything for you. And Abram believed, and it was counted to him for righteousness. So we see that righteousness is a gift that we receive. Righteousness is not something that we manufacture. Righteousness does not find its source in us, our behavior. It's in our faith in him. Now, Abram was definitely, he and Sarah, they didn't get it perfect, because here he gets this beautiful promise of God that they're going to have a child. And later in the chapter of 15, he makes covenant with Abram. They put the animals sacrifice, and Abram, God puts him to sleep, and he walks between the pieces, and he seals the covenant. He says, Abram, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. Now, as you go and you look in chapter number 16, God didn't do it in their timeline. And so they thought, you know what? God must need my help. And Sarai came up with a plan that, I'm not getting pregnant, so you take my maid and that child will be mine. And that just turned into a disaster that we live with even to this day, right? Because that was the birth of Ishmael. And God says, no, that wasn't my plan. I don't need your help. And so it's just a reminder for you and I today. Righteousness is a gift that you and I receive. And when he gives us these promises, we need to trust him. Even when it's humanly impossible, it's always him possible. So think about the promises that you have today. And remember, even though you have not experienced all of them and everything you think you might need now, God is faithful. He's faithful. The one who has called us out is faithful. And he doesn't need your help or my help in accomplishing or fulfilling his promises. In fact, when we get there and think, well, I need to help God because he's obviously busy with something else, the flesh always produces consequences. And they're painful. And Ishmael was the result of Abram and Sarai thinking they needed to help God. Friends, God doesn't need our help. In fact, when we get involved, and instead of responding in faith to what he wants to do and trusting his timing is perfect, we create a lot of difficulty for ourselves. And so I want to encourage you today, just like Abraham had many promises that have been called, you too. He will not leave you. He will not forsake you. Your righteousness is sealed in your faith. And he will fulfill those promises to you because you are as precious to him as even Abraham. You have what even Abraham didn't have. You have his divine indwelling presence. So hear his voice and know that his covenant with you is sealed, and he will fulfill all those promises. So live in surrender to his indwelling presence. Hear his voice and enjoy the journey with him. Have a great day.